Everything we know about Dan Heng. Dan Heng is a member of the Nameless, namely the Astral Express branch of the Nameless, a faction belonging to the Path of Trailblaze. Dan Heng is a Vidyadhara of the Xianzhou Lofu, now serving as the Express's guard and archivist. The Vidyadhara are a race of humanoid beings who possess Eastern draconic features. They are followers of Long, the Aeon of Permanence, an Aeon who long since passed away. The Vidyadhara are a species capable of self-reincarnating. After around 600 years, they begin molting, causing a pearl-like egg to form around their bodies. The time they spend in the egg depends on the person. For example, there is a Vidyadhara on the Lofu who molts every few months, and then there are Bailu and Danhang, who spent around 700 years molting. Usually they return to the Scale Gorge waterscape to begin the molting process, and you can see in-game the Vidyadhara eggs around the place. You can even interact with them for flavor text. After they reincarnate, they lose all their past self's memories and they literally become a blank slate. Now, don't think that because they are capable of self-reincarnating they are a perfect race or something, no. These guys can die just as easily as other mortal races, and every death permanently reduces their population, since they are incapable of having children. Now, I would have wanted to talk and theorize a bit about their origin and why they can't reproduce, but I'll leave that for Bailu's episode. Alright, I'll stop here talking about the Vidyadhara. You get the gist of it. They're a race of Eastern draconic humans who live long and reincarnate unless they somehow get one shot. Now back to Dan Heng. Is what you thought I would say, but first, let's talk about his previous incarnation, Dan Fang. Dan Fang held the title of Invibitor Lunae, or Drinker of the Moon for us English speakers, and was the previous High Elder of the Lofu. In short, the Vidyadhara High Elders are the leaders of the Vidyadhara on their respective ships, and you can think of them as something akin to pseudo-emanators of the permanence, or at least the closest thing there is to an emanator of a dead Aeon, as they are said to be the existence closest to Long. Aside from serving as the High Elder, Dan Fang was also recruited by Jing Liu to be part of her little friend group. On a more serious note, she really made the group in order to rescue the Xianzhou Yuchue from the Abundance. The group was called the High Cloud Quintet, and it consisted of Jing Liu, Jing Yuan, Bai Hang, a faction nameless, Dan Fang, and Yingxing, or more commonly known nowadays as Blade. Together they achieved many things, and we know a few. They drove out the Borisin that were invading the planet Thalassa. They rescued the Xianzhou Yuchue. They destroyed the alliance between two of the races forming the Abominations of Abundance, and they defeated the living planet Ketu Mirage. And before you raise your eyebrows, there have been at least 2 sentient living planets created by the Abundance. If you ever played Dead Space, imagine that they're something like brother moons. Among the quintet, Dan Fang was closest to Yingxing, which was ironic since their personalities shouldn't have really clicked with each other. 700 years ago, Shuhu, an emanator of the Abundance, launched an attack on the Xianzhou Lofu together with his Abundance minions. They probably wanted to get their hands on the Ambrosial Arbor for some reason. Anyways, the quintet, along with Teng Xiao, the general before Jing Yuan, fought the Emanator and his monsters. During the battle, Dan Fang fought with Shuku, and was afflicted with Dragon's Delirium. Now, I looked this term up, but the only thing I found about it is from Imbibitor Lunae's profile story, where it said that he was stuck in something like an illusion by Shuku. In order to free Dan Fang, Bai Hang charged directly into Shuku's sanguinary abyss, a sun of absolute darkness that he used to keep the Xianzhou soldiers at bay. The self-destructive act freed Dan, destroyed Shuku's little magic item, and resulted in Shuku's defeat. But the cost was Bai Heng's life. The only thing that remained was a tuft of hair and a few drops of blood. Unable to accept her death, and possibly manipulated by the Vidyadhara preceptors, Dan Fang took and tampered with the Transmutation Arcanum, an artifact of the High Elders, while Yingxing stole flesh from the Abundance Emanator. They hoped to forcefully reincarnate Bai Hang into a High Elder by using the Arcanum on her remains and the Emanator flesh, but instead of their fox girlfriend coming back, they created a draconic fox abomination, and Yingxing became fused with Shuku's flesh, making him too an immortal abomination. The battle with the fox abomination caused catastrophic losses for the Vidyadhara, causing over 4,000 victims. It seemed like they completely failed, but after Jing Liu killed the dragon fox, it began undergoing the Vidyadhara reincarnating process, and Bai Heng would eventually be reborn as Bailu. Before being arrested by the Cloud Knights and the Vidyadhara Preceptors, Dan Feng used the Transmutation Arcanum once again to perform the High Elder succession ritual. He wanted to make Bai Heng's reincarnation the next High Elder, but the ritual failed halfway through, and she only inherited his healing powers. Dan Feng was subsequently imprisoned and tortured. The Vidyadhara population was split on his punishment, as some wanted him permanently dead. But due to the Yao Qing's High Elder, Kailorum Venti, making a deal with the Xianzhou, he got the lesser sentence of Molting Rebirth. Now, we finally get to Dan Heng. 700 years after staying in his egg, around the time of the Third Abundance War, Dan was reborn. He should have been pardoned for his sins and be regarded as a new person. But instead he was detained to the shackling prison from his birth, and was chained there for many years. Probably in order to spare him from staying in prison his whole life, Jing Yuan exiled him from the Xianzhou. During his exile, he traveled with the IPC for a while to get as far away as possible from the Xianzhou, all the while being hunted by his past self's old friend, Yingxing, now reborn as Blade. At one point, he boarded a ship used by the Morning Actors, and almost had his memory stolen. He defended the ship from giant space monsters, and after he disembarked, he met Himeko, who thanked him as she was aboard one of the ships he saved, and offered him a place on the Express. Welt was already a member of the Astral Express by the time Dan Heng joined, and after a while, they also found March frozen in space, and rescued her. As for important events that happened during the game, in the present time, after the Stellaron event on the Luofu, Dan Heng's ban was removed, and is now free to come and go as he pleases on the Xianzhou ships. In combat he uses Cloud Piercer, a spear made for him by Yingxing, while in his true form he uses what seems to be the ball that is inside Cloud Piercer as a catalyst for his Cloud Hymn magic. Cloud Hymn is a type of magic, whatever that means in a sci-fi setting, that can be used in different ways depending on the Vidyadhara tribe. For example, the Luofu and the Fanghu Vidyadhara use Cloud Hymn to manipulate water, while the Yao Qing Vidyadhara use Cloud Hymn to manipulate wind. Dan uses the Cloud Hymn to manipulate the water in the form of a dragon, and also uses it to create water copies of Cloud Piercer. Now, as for random stuff about him, Dan is around 30 years old, as we know that 30 years ago, Lingsha's master tried experimenting on him while he was still in his egg, resulting in both her and Lingsha being banished to the Xianzhou Zooming. Of course he could be younger, but now we know for a fact that he is no older than 30. He's the only one on the Express capable of drinking Himeko's coffee, albeit he doesn't do it because he likes it. Himeko says that she saw Dan killing star-swallowing monsters in just one strike. Now, I know that people often use this fact to glaze him, but I do not find it that impressive. I fully believe that a High Elder whom I believe to be on the weaker scale of Emanator-like beings could kill a space monster in one shot. This is pretty much it. See you next time.